Hello folks, you're listening to Amongst Game, the new sports betting podcast with your hosts, Smeg and Ronnie.
Today in episode 4 we will have a major focus on the French Open. It's less than 48 hours away now. So Smeg, how have your bets for the pre-Grand Slam tournaments been getting on this week?
Yeah, they've been getting on pretty good so far, Ronnie. Obviously, I tipped up a girl called Vic. I barely can pronounce her name, but it's Vic Halantseva, and she went out early. She was 50-1, but she was a great price. But she got beaten by Pavlyuchenkova, who is in the semi-finals herself now. So she's obviously come into good form. Also, unfortunately, our 9-2 shot on Kiki Bertens failed today. She got beaten in the final set tiebreak against Kirsten Flipkens of Belgium. Which is disappointing. It's never nice to lose in a final set tiebreak. But I think, in fairness, the rain didn't suit Bertens very well, because Bertens will obviously have one eye on the French Open next week, and the fact that she had to play two days in a row because of rain delay, or 2 games in a day because of a rain delay, it didn't really bode well for her. Having said that, the good news is we have tipped up 2 50-1 prices, one in Geneva and one in Strasbourg. One is Steve Johnson at 50-1 with Paddy Power to win the Geneva Open, and he is in the semi-final right now, and he's currently a set up 6-2. I did on Twitter advise a cover bet just so that you could make some profit, but obviously we're all looking for him to get to the final, and if he does get to the final, he's playing against Gojocic, which means he'll probably be slight favourite in that final, so there'll be more covering opportunities and a chance to really...
A nice run for the 50-1.
Oh, absolutely. And of course Lajovic is also in the semi-final at 50-1 as well, so which is a great result from him. Unfortunately, he has to play TM, but TM had to finish off his match against Garcia Lopez today, so he's playing his second match of the tournament, and you know, I'd give Lajovic a slight chance in that one.
As we speak, this game is starting.
It's starting now, and Lajovic is just gone a game up. So yeah, so great chances to get 2 massive wins, which would be a great start to our French Open betting. So
let's talk about the French Open, Smeg. Except the main draws came out yesterday. I presume you're like a kid at Christmas Eve with that draw coming out yesterday. So how's the draw panned out? I see Nadal is still 2-5. Is that a fair price?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very skinny price myself. You know, I just think he's unbackable at the moment at 2-5. Yeah. Now, obviously, I'd say he probably will go on to win the French Open, but he's shown signs of vulnerability here and there. TM gave him a right beating in Madrid. And also last week, Zverev took him. We were talking about it would be interesting to see
in Rome,
if Zverev could really take it to Nadal. And Zverev was a break-up in the third set of that match, and then there was a rain delay, and Nadal came back, regrouped, and won the last 4 games. So he's looking a little bit more vulnerable now than he was, say, at this time last year. But obviously he's a big favourite to win it, and it's hard to see him get beaten, really.
So there are other markets that we can look at maybe for better value for punters out there. Say that the quarter markets I know interest you a lot, which means you're backing players basically to reach a semi-final, isn't it? The quarter that they're in, a particular draw. So this is why we spoke about before in the podcast how important the draw is, and now we have the draw. Maybe there's value we can get by backing players to reach semi-finals at good prices.
At value prices, yeah. Well, look, if you just go look through the first quarter, Nadal's in it, and he has quite a nice draw. You know, his route to the final is Dolgopolov in the first round. Should take care of him fairly easily. Probably João Sousa or Pella in the second round. Gasquet, who he's owned for his whole career, in the third round. Then Shapovalov in the fourth round. You got Koric, Schwartzman, and then in the semi-final Del Potro and City. Maybe Del Potro, Silic, maybe Edmund. Like, this is, you know, it really is very unlikely that Nadal isn't going to at least reach the final. So he's got an easy quarter, but he's 1-8 to win it. So it's very hard to see any value in that. I was looking at the second quarter. That's a wide open quarter. So it'll be it's anyone's to win. Silic is favourite at 10-3. I'm still unconvinced by him on clay. Del Potro 10-3. I'm quite unconvinced by him as well. Then you've got Fognini, who's what an entertainer, really talented player, and has given Nadal trouble in the past as well, actually. But he's 12-1. But he's not the type of guy that can play a number of 5 sets in a row at the highest level. And then you got maybe Edmund at 10-1. It represents a bit of value, but I can't see any real value bet in that quarter. So I'm going to look at the third quarter there, which is the one with Novak Djokovic.
So this is the quarter 3 winner market, is this, Meg?
Quarter 3, third quarter winning market. Okay. And with Novak last week in Rome, and he loves, he obviously has a great record in Rome over the years, but we've he's at times he's shown signs of coming back into the form, but they've always proven to be false dawns. But it really seemed like last week he was coming close to his highest level. Not quite there yet, but really be coming close to it. He had a fantastic win against Nishikori, real battling win against Nishikori in the quarterfinals of Rome. And then against Nadal, it was like old times, watching two of them slug it out. I know Nadal eventually won in 2 tight sets, but it was a really high quality match, and I really like Novak. He seems to be full of positivity again. He's got Marian Vida and his old team back training him, and he has a nice draw. So if you think about it, he's playing a qualifier in the first round, probably David Ferrer, who's well past his best in the second round, Bautista Agut maybe in the third round, who he has had some good battles in the past, but he's always come out on top. And of course Bautista Agut recently lost his mother, so we don't know how, what sort of frame of mind he's in. Then maybe Karina Busta, Kyrgios in the fourth round, who he should be able to take care of, and got maybe Goffin in the quarterfinal. Now these are matches that Novak, prime Novak should be really taken care of quite easily. And I actually have to say I really do like the 2-1 with Bet365 on Novak Djokovic to win his quarter. I think he's back in great shape, and it's a lovely draw for him. So that, Ronnie, is going to be my first tip of
so Djokovic to win his quarter, which happens to be quarter 3, which is at 2-1 with Bet365. That's best price.
Yeah, and I'm going to stake €100 on Novak Djokovic to win the third quarter at 2-1 with Bet365.
Good stuff, Smeg. Sounds good.
And finally, just with regarding the fourth quarter, you've got that's a tough quarter as well, because you've got Zverev and TM, Nishikori and Puig. Zverev, obviously, he's quite short. I have to say at 13-8, 6-4, and he still hasn't, it's going to happen eventually, and it could well happen in the French Open, but he still hasn't got to a semi-final of a Grand Slam just yet, and hasn't beaten the top player in the Grand Slam. TM has done that. Nishikori's obviously a threat, and maybe even someone like Lucas Puig, could run hot. So there's no real value for that value in that market for me, and so the only quarter betting market that appeals to me is the third quarter on Novak Djokovic.
Good stuff, Smeg. Well, if we turn our attention to the women's French Open, Smeg, and we look at the pundits are always telling us how wide open the women's game is, and even if I look at the markets, you roughly have 9 women who are between 5-1 and 20-1. Is that right? Would you agree that it is as open as that?
Well, actually, I don't agree that it's a wide open draw. And I'm going to use my argument. I'm going to appeal to the Wimbledon markets to make my case that I don't really believe that it's that open. I don't believe there are that many players that can actually win the French Open. And so if you just compare it to Wimbledon, there are so many players that have genuine chances at Wimbledon that don't really have a chance at the French Open. You look at Serena Williams, will always be a huge threat. A fit Serena Williams will always be a huge threat at Wimbledon, and she's there's no sign of her being fit or having any sort of form at the moment. So you can't really consider her as a potential bet in the French Open. Obviously Venus doesn't have what it takes on clay anymore, but she'll always be a threat at Wimbledon despite her age. So last year she got to the final, so you can rule her out, for example, or more or less rule her out. Then you've got the likes of the American players like Madison Keys and Van de Vega, or Coco Van de Vega. Now she hates clay, and Keys hasn't done well in clay, but they would have genuine chances in Wimbledon, but they don't really have a chance here in the French Open. I'm also looking at the likes of Joanna Konta, last year's Wimbledon semi-final, never really has played well on clay, so you can't really consider her as a potential winner here. There's so many players. Kerber, for example, loves the grass, great counter puncher, doesn't generate enough pace on clay from her shots to actually do damage, so she's not really a contender either. So even if you look at the likes of Kvitova and Pliskova, who really are probably their best surfaces are grass, considering they've both massive serves. Kvitova has won Wimbledon in the past, and while they definitely are contenders for the French Open, but they're much stronger contenders for Wimbledon. And Muguruza, of course, you could argue that she is as much a contender for Wimbledon as she is for the French. People like, and then the two main favourites, Halep and Svitolina, they might not be as strong a contenders in Wimbledon, but they're still contenders, So I think there really aren't that many players that can win it. Process of elimination.
Like, it may not be as open.
Yeah, even Wozniacki. I don't fancy her on grass either, but she has a hell of a lot greater chance to win at Wimbledon than she does on the clay at Roland Garros.
And in episode one podcast, Meg, you backed two women outright, Muguruza at 10-1 and Sloane Stephens at 66, if you remember. I see Muguruza has now drifted a little bit. 14-1 can be got now. Is there a reason for that, or does that worry you?
Well, it's a little bit concerning, all right. Yeah, I feel like a bit of a mug that I went too early. The fact that
mug is in her name, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Well, there you go. There has to be some sort of a sign there that Muguruza, she wins the French Open. But I'll say that. Look, Muguruza has 1 or 2 Grand Slams, and she in both those occasions she didn't come into those Grand Slams in any sort of great form. She didn't have any pre-tournament wins or pre-tournament runs that were noticeable, So like last year she came into Wimbledon with no form really, and even in 2016 for the French Open didn't have much form, and she came in and won it. So yes, she hasn't been in great form. She had a very poor loss in Rome to Gavrilova in a third set tiebreak, but I'm not that concerned. And in fact, I actually would say that 14-1 does actually seem like a bit of value for me, so I wouldn't put off anyone backing that again, because the way I see it with Muguruza is, if she brings her A game, she's the one to beat.
Okay.
She's still the one to beat. Now, whether she is going to bring her A game or not, look, she is very inconsistent, and it's a hard one to call. But for me, I'm still hopeful, but obviously a little bit concerned.
And what about Stephens? She's still 66s, I see.
Stephens is 66-1, and I have to say she has a great draw, very nice draw. In the first round she plays a qualifier. Second round she plays Alexandrova or a qualifier. So possibly playing 2 qualifiers in the first 2 rounds, and then maybe she probably due to play, maybe if she gets through those, Sevastova in the third round, who I wouldn't fear. She beat her in the US Open in a tight match, but I wouldn't particularly fear her. Obviously Kvitova is a big danger there in her quarter, and so she will be due to play Kvitova in the 4th round, and I don't think her game would match up that well with Petra's, but Petra would have to play Kontaveit probably in the 3rd round, and Kontaveit could easily take Petra out. So there's a lot, and then of course the best thing about her draw is that she's in Wozniacki's quarter of the draw. Wozniacki ranked number 2 seed, so if you're going to be in any top seeds quarter, Wozniacki is the one to be in.
Okay, yeah.
So I think she's got a great chance. Obviously maybe it would be, if she goes all the way, which is, you never know what Stephens is going to turn up. She could easily lose to a qualifier in the first round. She's that type, she has that sort of temperament. But if she got to the semi-final, she probably would be playing Svitolina, and she might be a bit of an underdog there. But there would be, because we've tipped her up at such a big price, there would be covering opportunities, and we know as well that once she gets to a business end of the tournament, she's very dangerous. So I'd be very optimistic about that 66-1, if I'm honest.
Okay, that's good. We're happy where we are. What about the quarter markets? You've already staked on Djokovic in the men's quarter 3 market.
Yeah.
Is there any value to be got in the women's quarter markets?
Well, there was value yesterday when they came up with Totsport. In the first quarter, Halep was 9-4. She had a very disappointing loss in the final to Svitolina, and of course we forgot to mention that we tipped up Svitolina at 11-1 to win the Rome Masters, so we were delighted with that tip, and I hope people did follow us on that one. We're just noticing here now that Steve Thompson is actually 2-0 up in the second set, so it looks like he's going to get to the final, which is great news, although he's could be about to be broken. But but regarding the first quarter, Halep, he's just got Garcia, Bertens and Kerber are the main threats there. I think she has to beat. Now Garcia is obviously a dangerous player, and we mentioned her in the last podcast, but on clay I think she's got the beating of any of those players, and if she comes in with her head screwed on and is totally motivated on giving another good run at the French Open, she should win that quarter. I backed her at 9-4. She's now 6-4. I couldn't be tipping her up at 6-4, especially after backing her at 9-4. But still, she should be in the semi-final. Yeah.
Quarter two.
Quarter two, it's an interesting quarter. Sharapova is obviously the favourite. She's 9-2 with Totsport as well. Muguruza's in there as well, and unfortunately Muguruza has a very tough first round draw. She's going to be playing against former French Open winner Svetlana Kuznetsova, who's probably past her best, but she's always dangerous. So yeah, I'd worry about that match as well, because Muguruza likes to play herself into a tournament. You know, she can be caught out on the hop against a good player in an early round. Okay. But like there's Pliskova's there as well, Serena, Gorges. It's a hard one to call. You probably would say, yeah, fair enough, Sharapova, considering her form in Rome, should be favourite. But look, I'd be happy enough with Muguruza being in there, and if she can find form, I wouldn't fear anyone in that quarter.
And what about quarter three?
Quarter three, once again, Svitolina has been in fantastic form, and I'm going to mention Svitolina for my next tip in a moment. But in that quarter, she's 6-4. She can be. I think she can be got it at 6-4 with Totsport again. And she was 11-10. Look, there's not really great clay court players in that draw. Like the only other threat is Ostapenko, but it's because it's Ostapenko that's in that quarter that I would refrain from tipping up Svitolina, because Ostapenko has a good record against Svitolina, and the last two times they've played, she has beaten her in straight sets, really destroyed her in Wimbledon. And she's the type of player that Svitolina doesn't like to play, a really aggressive player that takes the ball early and is capable of changing directions, and you don't really know where Ostapenko is going to go. And Svitolina, she likes to kind of control the match, and against a player like Ostapenko, maybe she gets frustrated because she can't control the match. So I can't tip it up, but once again, Svitolina, big threat.
Okay, so entering the last quarter.
Last quarter, very hard to call. Petra is 11-4. Kasatkina is there. Wozniacki, of course, and Stevens is at 12-1. Actually, I think Stevens is a good price at 12-1. Contivate, very open. I can't call it.
Okay, so what about the first round match betting are all up obviously for the matches on Sunday and Monday. I presume you have a few bets for us here, Smeg?
Yeah, have a few first round bets, all right. Yeah, we are looking at my first bet is in the men's draw. It's on Francis Tiafoe to beat Sam Querrey. Now, I tipped him up already on the Twitter account, the Most Game Twitter account, at 10-11. He has shortened to 8-11. I still think he's value at 8-11. And the reason being is Tiafoe, a young player, he's really made massive strides over the last 12 months. He's obviously got to the final of Estoril. You know, he showed that he can play on clay. Got to the final of Estoril in Portugal only a few weeks ago, and last year he went 5 sets with Fabio Fognini in the first round. And Fognini's such a great clay court player. That shows that he can play with the best of them. Yeah. And do you know what? I just feel like Querrey hasn't showed anything on clay for much of his career, really. You know, if you look at Querrey over the last few years, you know, he lost to Chung last year in 4 sets. He lost to Fratangelo in the first round the year before. You know, he's lost to a young Borna Kuric in the first round, and then Tursunov the year before. He just has had very poor records in Roland Garros. And I just think Tiafoe is on the up and capable of taking Sam Querrey out. So I'm going to tip up €110 at 10-11 on Francis Tiafoe.
So Tiafoe, Tiafoe, and
to beat Sam Querrey.
To beat Sam Querrey. And when is this exactly on?
Not 100% sure, because the schedule hasn't been
Sunday.
put out. But it'll be Sunday or Monday, possibly Tuesday. So it'll be over the next few days. You can check the schedule on the Roland Garros site. It will be.
Okay. What's the best price shortly again on Tiafoe? 110 on Tiafoe.
Well, I will say that I because I tipped up on Twitter at 10-11. I'm saying 110 on him at 10-11. Now he has shortened to 8-11, but I still think he's value at 8-11.
Good stuff.
Also, I want to tip up Albert Ramos to beat Mikhail Kukushkin, and he is at 4-6. Now, Ramos hasn't had as good a season this year on the clay as he did last year. Obviously, last year he got to the Monte Carlo Masters final, which is a really great result when he got beaten by Nadal in the final. But I still think he is a class act on the clay, and he's a great match player. He's proven it now. 2 years ago, he got to the quarter final of the French. Okay. beating the likes of Sock and Raonic to get there. Last year he got to the 4th round, and Kukushkin just hasn't had anywhere near those sort of results. Now he's had a reasonable run of form. He's always a dangerous player. He's had a reasonable run of form recently, but I can't understand myself why Ramos isn't a bigger favourite. Like I said, he has had a few poor losses, but recently he's beaten the likes of Silva, Delbonis, Isner, Gojocic, who is actually in the final of Geneva as well. So that's obviously a good win. So I just think Ramos is a level above Kukushkin. It could be a battle, but I fancy Ramos to get through it. So I'm gonna tip up, not as big a stake. I'm gonna tip up €75 on Albert Ramos at 4-6 with TalkSport.
That's 2 good bets for us there, Smeg. Look forward to Sunday and Monday. Have we a third one?
Yeah, we have a third bet. I'm going to talk about a Belgium double, and the Belgium double is on Kirsten Flipkens and David Goffin. Kirsten Flipkens to beat Tatiana Maria, and David Goffin to beat Robin Haas. Goffin has come back into form recently. He had a good run in Rome where he lost in 3 tight sets in the quarterfinals to Zverev, the first man to take a set off Zverev in a very long time. Before that, he's a top class player. He's got a 4-1 head-to-head winning record against Haas, and I just think Haas, especially in Grand Slams over 5 sets, has proven over and over again to be a bit of a battler. So I can't see Goffin lose that. Now he's at 1-5 there with Paddy Power, and of course I'm going to talk about Flipkens now. Flipkens had a great win today, winning in a 3rd set tiebreak against our girl Kiki Bertens, and she's shown some good form of late. It's going to be the battle of the backhand slices between herself and Tatiana Maria, but Flipkens is coming into good form, and Tatiana Maria's form has been really, really poor. Only recently this week she lost 6-love to Pavlyuchenkova. And I just think that overall that Flipkens has a little bit more bite in her forehand, and she's got a little bit more variety. She can play drop shots, slice. She can volley at the net. She's got a lot more variety, and you need to be creative on clay, and she has that. And because Tatiana Maria doesn't actually have a strong backhand herself, that's sometimes where Flipkens can be exposed. But because Maria doesn't have a strong backhand herself, I don't see Flipkens getting hurt by Maria in any way. So I'm going to suggest €137.50. I know it's a funky stake, but the reason I'm doing
on
that,
the Twitter page, to win the 100, is this, mate?
Just to win the 100, €137.50 at 8-11 to win the 100 on that Belgian double.
Okay, so that's David Goffin and Kirsten Flipkens double, €137.50.
Yeah. Now there's another bet that I like quite a lot, and it's on Alice Cornet to beat Sara Irani. And now, funnily enough, the money seems to be gone on Irani. I think Cornet started off at 4-6, but the money seems to have gone on Irani, and Cornet can be availed in a number of bookies at 10-11. And I just feel that Cornet has shown some good form over the last few years. She got to the 4th round of the French last year, and she was beaten by her French compatriot Caroline Garcia. She got to the 3rd round, losing to Venus the year before. She generally has done well in the French. She's playing in front of her home crowd. Irani, of course, many years ago she has been to the French Open semis and finals. So she obviously has great clay pedigree, and she's shown a little bit of form recently. But she's not the player that she was. And even though Irani has gone favourite, but I still fancy Cornet to come out on top. She's won the last two times they've played in straight sets, and she's won both matches they've played on clay. So for that reason, I'm going to tip up €55 at 10-11 on Alice Cornet.
Okay,
Cornet.
€55 on Cornet at 10-11.
Yeah, I've also on the Twitter page tipped up Pavlyuchenkova to beat Hercog at 8-11. Now that was with TalkSport. Now she has shortened to 4-7, so the money has gone in. So maybe you've missed the boat there, but hopefully you followed me on that tip. I do fancy her. She's in good form. She made the semi-final at I think Strasbourg this week. And I just think she's a level above Hercog, so I fancy her to win that. I just felt that price, she should have been a lot shorter to win that match. So that was Pavlyuchenkova, €137.50 with TalkSport at 8 to 11. Now, of course, if you don't fancy the 4 to 7 now, I totally understand that, but I just wanted to make that point that was put up on Twitter as well.
Okay, great stuff, Smeg. So just a quick recap: we have 100 on Djokovic to win his quarter, 2 to 1, Bet365. We have 110 on TFO to match betting at 10 to 11. The same with 75 on Ramos, match betting at 4 to 6. 55 straight win on Cornet at 10 to 11, and then the Belgian double, as you called it, 137.50 on Kirsten Flipkins and David Goffin, and that's at 8 to 11.
Can I just suggest one more bet there, Ronnie, if you don't mind?
Of course.
It's the first round of the Grand Slam, and obviously there's a lot of opportunities. Generally, I'm not a big fan of accumulators, but if there ever is a time to suggest an accumulator, I'm going to suggest an accumulator on Contivate to beat Brangle.
What are we mixing men and women here? Both?
Well, no, just women.
Just women, okay.
Mertens to beat Lepchenko.
Yeah.
And Keys to beat Vickery.
Okay.
I just feel like they're. I'm not going to go into too much details. I just feel that they're all a class above their opponents.
Okay, a treble, is it?
A treble, yeah. Okay. And that's at 10 to 11 with Toad Sport. I feel like they're all a level above their opponents, and I have to say I just can't see any of them losing. So, like I said, I'm not a fan of accumulator bets, but sometimes when you see reasonably good prices, even though they're short, reasonably good prices, put them in a treble. I think they'll all win.
Okay, could you recap that?
So that's
again for us?
It's Mertens to beat Lepchenko,
Keys
to beat Madison Keys to beat Sasha Vickery, and the final one is Annette Kontaveit, who's been in great form recently, to be reaching the semi-final, and we actually had her back the semi-final to beat Brangle. So those are the French Open tips. And my last tip, or my last point,
is what are you staking on that treble?
€110.
110. Okay.
The last point I'm going to make is I am actually going to suggest that we also back Svitolina to win the French. She was really so impressive last week. She destroyed Halep in the final. She looks like she must be ready now. At 13 to 2, I know we've already got Muguruza and Stevens backed, but at 13 to 2, I think it's worth €40 at least, just as a saver, as a cover bet, really, because I think she's going to be difficult to beat.
Okay, so 40 on Svitolina outright bet at 13 to 2. Yeah. Good stuff, Smeg.
Okay, so that's the tennis covered for now. If anybody has any tips they want to pass on to us, or has any views or any disagreements or disagrees with me and Ronnie on any of those bets, feel free to voice your opinion on Twitter, and we will get back to you on that. So Ronnie, last week you talked about what 3 lessons you learned from the sporting events of the past week. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you this question for this week. What 3 lessons are you looking to learn for this weekend sport? Okay,
this weekend, 3 lessons that I'm looking forward to, I suppose, getting answers about. We'll take one in the Gaelic Football Championship, one in the Hurling Championship, and we'll take one. We come from the Champions League final in soccer tomorrow night as well in Kiev. So I'll take the first lesson I'm looking forward to is actually this whole argument of maybe there should be 2 tiers in the Gaelic Football Championship, 2 16s or whatever like that. Now this is a weekend where we're going to see some evidence whether we should or not, because we have 4 Division 4 teams playing this weekend. With Carlow are playing Kildare, Wicklow are playing Dublin, Leitrim are playing Roscommon, and Antrim are playing Down. There's 4 Division 4 teams, two playing against Kildare, Dublin and Roscommon, which are Division 1/Division 2 sides, so there's an obvious gap in class coming up in these games this weekend, and the bookies show that with their handicaps, Antrim from 12 points up. But on evidence of the last couple of weeks, these teams are in big trouble this weekend. 3 Division 4 teams have played in the last couple of weeks. Waterford played last weekend and got beaten by Tipperary, Division 2 team, 20 points to 9. I actually heard the interview by McClinchy, the Waterford manager, that week, and he basically said just were going out to play not to concede goals, and I suppose they did that, but they lost by 11 points.
Yeah.
Limerick got hammered at home, 122 to 14 points by a Division 2 team in Clare. And the previous week, Sligo, actually, who are Division 3 side themselves, went to London and beat them by 10 points, 121 to 111. So it's been a bad couple of weeks for Division 4 sides.
Yeah.
And this weekend we'll kind of, we can't say exactly what's going to happen, but it's a big weekend for Division 4 sides. And if we've got 4 hammerings on the horizon here, or at least 3, this whole Tier 1, Tier 2 debate will come into play again.
Yeah.
That's one lesson I'm looking forward to seeing. In the hurling, I suppose we've got got 4 great games plus Joe McDonagh games again this weekend. But I suppose if we look at the Tipperary Cork game this Sunday, this is we're going to see. I suppose we're going to see here, you know, if Tipperary turn up Sunday, change a few players back from injury, and can, you know, completely turn around basically the performance they gave, which was very bad against Limerick last Sunday.
Yeah.
If they can do that, it can prove again that maybe we can be too drastic in our assumptions, our conclusions from one match. You know,
Yeah.
It's happened for years in the National League, and the way this championship is now, Smeg, it nearly is a National League, a more competitive one, and in better weather, of course, and so on. But over the last 5 years, look back at the National League Division 1 records, and teams don't win 5 matches out of 5 in those league. I know that's an extra match in the league. They generally win 2, lose 3, or win 3, lose 2. You know, even over the last 5 seasons, only 2 teams have won 4 out of 5 matches. 80% of their matches in the group of the league. Kilkenny in 2016 and Tipperary in 2015, which shows how hard it is to do that. And I think in particular the Munster Championship could be very much like that, where a team can bounce back within that 7 days, instead of hearing all the talk about how are they going to, you know, get back together this week. You saw Dublin react last week to, you know, a gut-wrenching loss to Kilkenny, and they went down to Wexford and did perform. You know, they didn't not win because of what happened the week before. Yeah. So I'm interested to see. This, my next is, you know, will we see Tip bounce back this Sunday? And if we do, we will be very careful as punters what our mindset is going forward, to have drastic conclusions on 70-minute game at the previous week. So I'm interested to see what happens there. Of course, you remember Tipperary in 2010 when they won the Ireland, stopping Kenny win the 5 in a row. They actually lost to Cork in the first round of that championship.
Of course, that's right.
By 9 or 10 points and came back. So, you know.
But do you not think Cork are value at 7-4? Because they played extremely well. It was a great game against Clare.
If you're basing on last week against Tip, you know, nearly anyone who's playing Tip is 7-4 value. But I'm not. But Tip's potential to improve is a lot more than, you know, is a lot more, and they're at home. They'll have players back. I think it's priced up,
and they're under the cosh. It's really, you know,
they got to come out now. It's not a case if they lose they're out, but it's, you know, it could be close enough to that.
There's massive pressure, and
so I think it's one to sit back and see how they are, their body language and so on. I don't have a bet on it per se, but I'm interested to see what can we learn from it. And the third lesson look forward to seeing this weekend, Liverpool and Real Madrid, obviously tomorrow night, Champions League final. I'm looking forward to seeing Madrid. Are obviously a great side. They've won three Champions Leagues in the last 4 years, but to go onto the complete legendary status is where they could go if they win tomorrow night. Because if you win 3 European Cups, 3 Champions Leagues in a row, you're going on it. You're going to, you know, you go up at another level, and that would be, if they did win, that'd be 4 in 5 years, which is incredible considering it's only a few years ago. You know, the question was going around, who was the last team to win 2 European Cups in a row, and it was back as far as the AC Milan side of 89-90. You know, you're talking, you know, so a lifetime.
They don't really get the credit that they deserve, that Real Madrid team. In your view, would you not agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. I suppose they had a couple of kind of dogged European Cup finals against their rivals Atletico, and I suppose, you know, Atletico should have won one of them maybe. But
in comparison to that great Barcelona team, when they got to the Champions League finals, they generally won really easy. Like, they had 2 great wins over United, and so maybe that's the reason why Real
they dominated the ball so much. But Real, what I'm looking forward to seeing tomorrow night really is this Real side. Their age profile isn't good. They're, you know, I think they're at their peak maybe last year or even the year before. They've got players starting tomorrow night: Keylor Navas, Sergio Ramos, Marcelo, Modric, Ronaldo, Benzema. All these are over 30 plus, you know. Everyone 30 plus. Have they got another game in? Have they got another big knockout game in them where, you know, if they played to their best or close to their best, we all would look at it and say, you know, they're 6-5 to win a game against Liverpool. You know, that looks good, you know, when you look at it like that. But the question is, are they at that level? Or are they going to be at that level tomorrow night? That's the question. That's the lesson I'm looking forward to seeing. Where Madrid are at. I think
there's the Bayern Munich match where Bayern Munich did, you know, ultimately did dominate possession and were really unlucky. You know, think of the amount of shots they had in that second leg. Really unlucky. You know, to give away stupid goals. You know, that surely is worrying from a Real Madrid point of view. Like, we talked about the importance of luck in our second podcast there, but maybe have they written their luck for one step too far? Like,
well, maybe that's it. Maybe they have, and you're interested to say about the shots Munich had. Like, I see Paddy Power actually have an interesting market up for this week where you can actually back shots on target. Would you believe? So shots, and even look at Liverpool.
Good lad, Paddy.
Yeah, they're even at a line for Liverpool to have 5 shots on target in the game. And look at the way Liverpool do press so high up the field, and with Salah, Mane, Firmino, they like to shoot. Maybe it's a bet worth thinking about over the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'm not going outright in this game as a bet, but it's certainly a good. I'm looking forward to seeing whether Madrid go down in that what I would call legendary status if they can win 4 out of 5 and 3 in a row.
How do you think they're going to handle Salah?
Well, Salah will probably, as man on man with Marcelo as left back, people and the pundits are saying, and rightly so, Salah tucks back into his left foot all the time. Marcelo loves to go on the outside. He's predominantly left footed and he's a great attacker. You'd be saying the space could open up for Salah, come back in his left foot. He's had his big problems, or not big problems, he's had his only problems, you could say, this year when he's faced kind of right foot at left back. He's like Sebastian Young twice at United, where he was able to tuck in with him and maybe cut off his left foot striking. But I suppose what Madrid, I presume, will do is bring Casemiro, as soon as the ball comes to Salah, Casemiro shifts across left to cover coming in. I don't think Madrid are going to be as naive as what pundits might say either, and they do have outstanding one-on-one defenders in Ramos, Varane. These guys, they can turn up and defend on the night. We can't forget that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm certainly looking forward to that.
Have you backed anything? Have you found any bets for it?
I have a small bet, man. Very small. I have a 1 point bet. I suppose every price is a value. Every dog in the street says, and they're right, that there'll be goals in this game. Look at the way both teams play and what their previous history in the last few months suggests that it was goals. But there's one market where for the game to be 0-0 after 23 minutes, I'm backing no goal to be scored until after the 23rd minute. Now it's only a small bet because of course with these two teams they're liable to score any time, and even the last couple of Champions League finals, there has been early goals. But the why I like this is because, for example, Aston Villa Fulham tomorrow at the playoff final, the Paddy Power and the other bookies would have the market up for the time of the first goal to be before or after the 32nd minute, because the stats show over the years at that level of football the average goal is scored on the 32nd minute. So but they've reined that in for this game, taking into consideration that Madrid and Liverpool are so good offensively and so poor defensively, both of them really, maybe so they have brought back 9 minutes basically, from 32 minutes to 23 minutes. So I'm just going to take a little chance that the open 23 minutes doesn't have a goal. I might need to look for that. I might need the keepers pull off a couple of saves or whatever. But it's a market. A price I'm willing to take on
because of the value.
It's value. Okay,
It's 9 minutes seems like a fairly large shift in standard pricing.
It does. So I'm going to stake 1 point on that, on the first goal in the game to be after the 23rd minute. That's an even money smeg.
That's fair enough, Ronnie. So that's 1 point on no goals to be scored until after the 23 minute at even money with Paddy Powers.
That's correct, yeah.
I was just thinking to myself, what a day of hurling on Sunday. You've got Galway, Kilkenny, Tipperary, Cork, Clare, Waterford, like fantastic matches.
Brilliant,
so I'm just asking you, have you got any bets there to
Sunday's a brilliant day. You have Offaly Wexford, a great game, and Tullamore,
of course,
as well. But for those games, I strongly fancy Galway. But listen, Smeg, in our first podcast, in our second podcast, I spoke about a bet on Galway. I have 2.5 points on Galway to top the group in Leinster, so I don't need to get more involved with them. With having them backed already, basically, and if they do win Sunday, to go a long way to doing that. So I don't need that money's backed on them at 11 to 10 for this individual game. They're say about 8 to 15, 4 to 7ish for this game, but I've them backed at 11 to 10 to top the group, so I'm not going back in on Galway.
But you're happy enough with the situation at the moment.
And if you look at Clare Waterford, again that was our first podcast. Actually, I staked 2 points on Waterford to win less than 2 games.
That's right.
So they're going down to Clare this weekend, and they're without Pádraig Mahony, they're without Austin Gleeson, and obviously we mentioned about Shane Bennett not being there, so they are missing players. I'm happy with the situation to be in. I don't need to go back in
exactly.
Clare, so I'm happy to
and Clare, in fairness, they look good. They like last week, they lost to Cork, but both teams played well, and I felt like that Clare team, they are determined to kind of do something this
Yeah, they probably overwent for goal chances last week and the points were on. But if they can, I'm not going to get involved. As I said, I've opposed Waterford outright in Munster already, so I don't need to do so again. So I'm going to leave those. We spoke with the Tip Cork game, I suppose. So I don't have a bet in those hurling games. The only GA bet I've done so far, Smeg, is actually is Tip Cork, but football, would you believe?
All right.
Gaelic tomorrow night. They're playing in Semple Stadium tomorrow night, Thurles, the Munster semi-final.
Yeah.
We already have in this mark. We've Kerry backed actually, if you remember, to win this Munster Championship. Doubled with Clare to reach Leinster final. But for this Tip Cork game, I'm actually expecting an open game on a big pitch in good weather. I like the marker with Boyles on over 34 points total points to be scored in the game at 8-11. Tip play Cork, like Thurles is such a big pitch, and with the weather being so good, there's always more scores with that scenario. I think 2 years ago Tipperary actually beat Cork in Thurles, and they beat them on a scoreline of 3-15 to 2-16. Massive hurling score.
There you go.
They played each other in the first round this year's league. It was down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh now. The score was 3-16 to 1-16 to Tip. Big scores.
And in the league, what the style of play were they? Tipperary and Cork generally playing attacking football.
They were. McCarthy's in the new manager of Cork, and they're both suggesting that's the way it's going to be. Last year, you can argue against me last year because they played against each other last year in Munster, and it was a dour, horrible 110 to 1-9 win for Cork, if you remember. But it was down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, which is a completely different pitch to Semple Stadium, and weather wasn't great that day. That's more the exception to the rule with Tip Cork games in recent years. I'm happy enough to.
But it is worth pointing that out.
It is worth pointing it out. But I think we've got a lot of good forwards on a big pitch. Cork with Colm O'Neill, Luke Connolly. Tip with Michael Quinlan and Lee McGrath. Hopefully Conor Sweeney's back. You've got a lot of good forwards on a big pitch. I like that line. I think the line it could be. I would suggest 2 or 3 points less than what it could be. So I'm happy with Boyles Smeg to go 1.5 points on Tipperary versus Cork, a Munster football semi-final, to go over 34 points at 8-11. I'm happy to leave it at that for the moment, Smeg, until we see more teams will come out obviously tonight, especially for the Gaelic.
Okay, so that's 1.5 points on the Tipperary versus Cork Gaelic football match to be over 34 points at 8-11 with Boyles. I'll have to say that is another match. I'm really looking forward to that match as well. So that concludes our podcast for this evening. Obviously it was a more serious affair this time because we really had to get down to some proper tennis talk really for the first time since we've been started doing these podcasts. Just want to let you know that our podcast is available to be downloaded on iTunes, and we also have a YouTube channel which is just called Mugs Game. So please, for any of our Twitter followers or any new followers that we have, Facebook followers, please subscribe. If you have a YouTube account or Gmail account, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and pass on the word. If anybody has any questions or queries, of course, message us on Twitter and we'll address them. Retweet our podcast if you can. We're trying to get as many followers as possible, particularly this weekend because we've got the French Open coming up. So if there's massive, there's tennis fans all over the world. So I'd love to get as many followers as possible for this particular weekend. As we've had an extensive preview of the French Open. So retweet and pass the word on to your friends if you're enjoying the podcast, and we will continue to do it for you. And that's all I have to say about that. What about you, Ronnie?
Yeah, good stuff. As I said, we'll be back next week sometime with episode 5, where we'll look back at what's happened in the crazy first week, we hope, at the French Open. And we of course look forward to next weekend, the Bank Holiday weekend, with lots more GA action. There's a host of international friendlies coming up. We'll see how teams are shaping up, and we will have another big World Cup bet also on next week's podcast.
Brilliant stuff. And of course, we mentioned last week we did a Q&A, questions and answers. We didn't do it this week, but hopefully maybe next week we'll be able to take some questions again. So that's it for Mugs Game's 4th episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat to you soon.